I think the last thing Belmont County wants their constituents to know is that they brought back someone from Jamaica that now all of these taxpayers have to pay for them to be in prison for the rest of their life. I think they'll probably be like, let's just leave them in Jamaica. And no one cares because no one really cares about my dad. Now, if that was like John Benet Ramsey's killer, they'd bring him right back. No one would care that we're spending $1 million a year to like house this person in a prison. They wouldn't care. But I think this guy could get away with it and let me solve my dad's murder all at the same time. And everybody wins.
In today's new episode of Crawlspace, we speak with return guest Madison McGhee of the hit podcast Ice Cold Case. In this conversation, we speak about her dad's murder. John Cornelius McGhee was murdered at his home in Ohio on July 11th, 2002. And that is what her podcast is about. Lance, how'd you like this conversation?
It was great to have her back on. It was almost 2 years to the day that we had previously spoken with her. We reconnected at CrimeCon, and this is another one of those wonderful byproducts of CrimeCon is that you reconnect with, or you meet for the first time, people who you have on the show later on who have an amazing story to tell. Madison is no exception to that. We really didn't have much of an agenda because whenever we do speak with her, we do end up just kind of riffing and going off a little bit, but we do end up honing in on her father's murder. He was shot on July 11th, 2002, when Madison was just 6 years old. She doesn't have a lot of memories of him, and she speaks about him in a really cool way in this conversation about how his presence in her life is more like a buddy who's kind of helping her out to solve his murder. And that was really kind of eye-opening to me. So I really love this conversation. And we also talk about the future of her podcasts and podcasting in general. So I think people are going to get a lot out of this.
Great. Yeah, I hope everyone enjoys it. And definitely check out Madison's podcast, Ice Cold Case, and you can follow her on social media as well. She is a powerhouse, and her podcast is great. If you haven't heard it, please do so. I think you'd really enjoy it.
All right, we're going to break real quick for a commercial, and we will return with Madison McGhee of the Ice Cold Case podcast. And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
Welcome back to the podcast, Madison McGhee. Madison, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Well, we're doing well. I think Tim's doing a little better than me. I had some computer problems before we started recording, and I'm not like a Bluetooth guy when we record, so I'm wired everywhere. When I tried to get on our platform, Riverside, it pulled up the interview we did 2 years ago, October 6th, 2023, and I was wearing the same shirt.
No way! Oh my God, wait, that's so funny. Also, I can't believe that it's been that long.
I know. It's been 2 years. 2 years and a few weeks.
That's
it
crazy.
Feels like yesterday, but also like at least 5 years ago at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Wow. Time is so weird. I've been thinking that a lot lately. I just turned 30 and I'm like, time is like so bizarre. Not to get really, eat mushrooms before listening to this episode.
When we talked to you at CrimeCon, we were like, yeah, let's connect and get you back on. And I think we had said like, whatever you want to talk about. So we have no real agenda today to talk about. So we might as well start talking about how weird time is.
Yeah. And I came with no agenda too, because I feel like I'm better off the cuff. I will give you some insider trading. I did another session at this past CrimeCon with Josh Mankiewicz. It was kind of last minute. I was supposed to do it with other people and then they couldn't attend. So Josh was like, well, I'll do it with you. And he calls me and he's like, what are we going to talk about? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, I mean, we could like prep something. He said, or we could just do it. We prepped nothing. I had to send like a description of what the session was going to be to CrimeCon. And I was like, I don't know, because we don't know. And it was really funny. And we went up there and like, even like 3 minutes before, I was like, so what are we going to talk about? And he was like, we'll just wing it. And I was like, okay. And it ended up going really well, but it was really funny because when we were prepping on the phone, he was like, I mean, we could do it right now if we wanted. Like, we'll just go up and we'll just do it. And I was like, okay. And it ended up going well. But yeah, I'm in a no prep phase of my life, I guess. So crazy, living on the edge.
Well, that's what happens in your 30s. You get into the no prep phase. You're like, you know, I've been prepping for so long. It's time to not prep.
Yeah, for what?
Yeah,
for what? For nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like you turn 30 and like nothing matters.
Oh my. Can you introduce yourself to the listeners and refresh their memories on who you are?
Sure. My name is Madison McGhee, and I'm just a girl. I have a podcast called Ice Cold Case where I am still investigating my dad's murder, Unsolved, from 2002. I guess since then, like, I've kind of become a podcaster very accidentally. And I was then, and I still am a television and film producer and director. And yeah, cat mom.
It was always nice to see you at CrimeCon and nice to see you again over there. That is kind of a wild adventure. How was 2025's CrimeCon for you?
You know what? It's funny. I kind of went in low key going, I think this will be my last CrimeCon. Like, I think I'm tired and it's a lot and there's a lot going on. And this was my favorite CrimeCon. And I can't wait to go back. And I'm like so excited. I had the best time. It was really, I want to say weirdly refreshing, but no diss to CrimeCon, but it was weirdly refreshing. I normally leave and I'm tired. You just give a lot. You give a lot of yourself. You're talking all day. It's a lot of, you know, just yapping and doing all the things, networking with other podcasts and meeting people. And it's like summer camp. You see people you haven't seen in a while, so you get really excited. And this year just felt like nothing felt like work. None of it felt heavy. It just felt really light and good. And it was a really interesting experience for me. But I had a great time. CrimeCon 2025, Denver, it was good. I had a really, really good time. What about you all?
Same. We had a really good time as well. We had a session at the very end. It was Sunday. It was the last session of the weekend. We did it with Joseph Scott Morgan. It was on the New England serial killer rumors. And because it was the last session on a Sunday, and because we were talking about something that was so specific to a certain region that was nowhere near Denver, we were very nervous that we weren't going to have anybody attending. And there was like a Broncos game on that day too, not during the time slot, but there was like football happening. So I, was like, we're going to have like 12 people, and people are so engaged there. That's why they go. And I totally underestimated everybody. We had a pretty much packed room. And the session went over really well. And a lot of people knew about this New England serial killer rumor. A lot of people believed it. A lot of people were following it. So very surprising. And to your point, you go in and you're like, I got to steel myself. I got to prepare myself to talk and to be exhausted. And then at the end, you look back at it all and you're like, that was so worth it. It was so worth it. Meeting new people, reconnecting with other colleagues, and connecting on stage with people, doing a session and getting some engagement. So yeah, really looking forward to the next one.
Great. Same. I can't wait. Yeah. It's really fun, I think, also because you're surrounded by people that are like all interested in this. Like, it's not like you go into like the podcast abyss and you go, oh, I hope I find a couple people who like this. When you go to CrimeCon, every single person there is interested in the same things, because that's what the whole thing is. And so it's really interesting to connect with people in that way and know that like all 6,000 or whatever, 7,500 people there are like going to get it.
Yeah, it was a great time. Tell us about your podcast. Can you tell us about, I guess, why you started it in the first place?
I started it for kind of a few reasons. The first and like most obvious is that my dad, J.C. McGhee, was murdered in 2002. And it's unsolved. So I was curious about what happened to him and what transpired that morning and the people involved and all of these things that I was never really exposed to because I was so young. I wanted answers to those questions. So that's kind of the most obvious. Then there's like other things of I really wanted the police to sort of do something about this. Like, yes, I can find out and like go to bed at night knowing what happened. But I did feel like it was the police's responsibility to like solve the case. And I felt like a case that old with the circumstances that were surrounding it, it really probably wasn't going to be high priority. So if I could do something that put pressure on them and made them feel like, oh, this case is almost like gone viral, we have to do something about this, then that would be the route I would have to take, because I don't have any other resources as a very baby millennial other than the internet. Like that's my only like free resource. And so I was like, okay, like that's what I'll do. And so that sort of started the actual show. So my curiosity sparked me looking into it. The motivation of kind of putting pressure on the police is what sparked the actual podcast itself. And then it's sort of taken on a life of its own because people were listening and people were responding to it. And now I sort of feel this connection to my listeners, but also this case and also their stories. And now it's sort of taken on a whole other deeper meaning. But those are sort of the few reasons why it started and why it still exists.
Do you mind giving a little background between you and your father?
Yeah, my dad was killed when I was 6. So really interesting element of this story is like I was so young. I don't remember a ton of like those earlier memories and those earlier years. I remember sort of towards the end, like he died right at a point where you're like starting to remember things. And so I have almost these like very faint dream-like memories of my dad like being around for like, I was like in like a little 5-year-old soccer league and I was a cheerleader and like doing all these like little things. And my dad was like always there. In a weird way, the pain of losing my dad at such a young age is that I could only know the gap. I only know the hole that it left. I don't even really know my dad in a way. I only know kind of what was like left behind. And then the older you get, the more you're like, oh, it would be nice if like my dad helped me move my couch or my dad helped me with like, you know, understanding football so that I can win my fantasy league and like show all these guys that think I don't know anything about football that I do, which my friend is helping me with. And I won my league last year, but it would be nice if that was like my dad, you know? But throughout my investigation, I've learned so much about him that I almost feel like my dad is my friend and less my dad. It's a very weird feeling because I'm not learning about him as a dad, except from my sister. Like my sister will talk to me about him and you kind of get that perspective. But from everyone else, it's like I'm learning about him as a buddy. And so that's sort of the lens that now I see my dad. And I'm getting older. So it's like I'm now closer to the age he was when he was killed than I am when he died. So like I was 6 and I'm 30 now. So I'm like so far removed from 6, but I'm 15 years away from like being the same age as my dad when he died. So now I almost view him as like, I have friends who are 45 years old and that's how old my dad was when he died. So it's like really interesting to kind of feel that dynamic now of like, my dad will never age past that. So in my mind, I'll like sort of one day view my dad as like a kid and younger than me because I'll be 65 and be like, oh, my dad was like this young, you know, gun and I'll be an old woman. So it's kind of an interesting framework to see him in that way as forever 45, because then I just get closer and closer to that age and he's like my friend now.
Do you ever have like conversations with him sort of in a way where you're talking through maybe a theory or something that's happening with law enforcement?
For sure. I think even more so now, I really am like putting myself like in that position. My dad was sort of out of, because he was a drug dealer turned confidential informant. But by the time he was 45 and killed, he was kind of out of the game a bit. And so his heyday was when he was like the age I am right now. And so I'm kind of filtering through like okay, well, if I was doing that, like, what would my dynamic be with police? What would I be trying to like hide, conceal, use to my advantage? And so it's actually been kind of helpful the older I get. I don't have the same stakes. I don't have kids. It's a little bit different, but it is easier. I have friends who have kids. It's easier to put myself in that mindset of like, well, John Quinones is like, what would you do if you were in that position? And I think I do have like sort of these conversations now, like out loud or on paper, as I'm just like thinking in my head of like, okay, well, what would my dad be doing right now? And because we do have a lot of the same anxiety levels and we struggled with depression, and obviously our lifestyles are completely different, but I think the mental elements are very similar and we share DNA. So I think it's been helpful to kind of try to piece together this puzzle by having those conversations in my head of like, okay, what would you be doing right now? Or how would you be responding to this? Because a lot of the things I'm reading about in witness testimony, and there's a big case with my cousin Rico, my dad was this age when all of that happened. And so it's really interesting to put myself in that position and try to have those conversations kind of like with him, but in my head. And I look like a crazy person walking around.
Where are you at with the podcast now? What have you aired and what's coming up?
Yeah, I took a little bit of a break, mental health break. I was like gonna lose it, I think. I was also going through like a really weird financial time, which is a story for like another day and another podcast, a financial podcast. Don't buy a house and don't get credit card debt. And yeah, that's a Dave Ramsey podcast. But I took a break and I am coming back. I have 2 episodes in the can. I have a couple more I'm writing right now and a couple more that are not touched quite yet. But I have, I think, 7 left about my dad to go. And then that's it. I don't have a resolution, spoiler. I mean, maybe by then, I don't know, but right now I don't. And I don't know what else I can give and what else I can do without like substantial funding, like not a GoFundMe level. Like I need like a lot of money to like find DNA, test DNA, hire a PI. Like the police are not going to do anything. I basically need to hire like my own like police force to like do something. And so without that, it just feels like I'm kind of spinning in circles for no reason. Like I just need to kind of like wait it out a little bit. So I'm going to finish up what I have because I do have some like kind of groundbreaking stuff that I haven't shared that I'm like, okay, I'll just put this out there and then kind of keep it moving. And then I'm just going to wait and really do as much behind the scenes as far as like calling the police. I have a detective's info that I am sort of in contact with on the force at the Belmont County Sheriff's Department. And so just really spending time like calling them, emailing them, showing up, being like, hey, let's do something, and kind of doing a little bit more of like the behind the scenes work other than the podcast. So I'm going to stop after that. I think the next 7 will come out through the end of the year. I'm going to take a break from my dad's stuff, but I am taking the podcast weekly and I'll be doing a case a week. Cold cases only, which is like way harder than just recapping a documentary I watched. No shade to those people, but doing cold cases is like actually way harder than you would expect it to be because the research element is like not really done for you. You can't like read a People magazine article and watch a documentary and go, okay, here we go. Like time to recap this case for you. It's like very hard. So I'm working on that with like a team of people. I mean, it's like so much work.
And that's going to be on the Ice Cold Case feed?
TBD. Does anybody want that? I don't know. I'm really torn. I've seen it both ways. I've seen people take their story, their show, their feed and shift it and make it something else. And sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. I am very torn if I should do like an Ice Cold Case weekly feed and like start something new. My ad guy, I can hear him from 5 blocks down. We live very close to each other going, no, we're not doing that. But I don't know what makes sense, just super transparently.
Easy answer is you do both. So you just start a feed that's called Ice Cold Case Weekly. You upload on both, and then you look at the numbers and you decide when you're going to not continue to upload on the original feed. Even saying that, like, there's no reason why you shouldn't just upload on both feeds.
Right. Yeah, no, it's not a bad idea. And shows have done that.
I can hear your ad guy right now saying, "Shut up, Lance."
I know, Ben. I'm sorry, Ben. Yeah, it's tough. Betrayal did it. I actually was not intentionally going to do a separate feed at all, just because I was like, oh, that's so much work and I'm lazy. But my friend was like, my comedian friend of all people was like, oh, I listened to this true crime podcast called Betrayal, and they did weekly and they made a new thing. And I was like, you listen to true crime podcasts? It's so crazy to me. Everyone listens to true crime podcasts, I guess. That's when I was like, oh, I guess I could do that. Because then if there is an update to my dad's case or something like that, it can all still live in what I've built. But who knows? We'll see. But I'm planning on doing that in like February. I'm going to take January off to like kind of regroup. And yeah, I think tentatively like February we'll start the weekly. So we'll see. I don't know.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
So in your bonus episode from a couple months ago, you mentioned how your podcast has been used as an investigative tool. Can you explain how that is, and do you have any examples you could share?
So many. It's actually cool and exciting. It's my favorite thing about the podcast is how it became almost like this piece of the investigation. And something I'm really proud of is I don't think that any prosecutor could try this case without mentioning the podcast. I think that's something that's like really cool. Through the show, I've talked with witnesses who were never interviewed, the main suspect in the case, people that the police were saying they couldn't get a hold of, all because of the podcast. People either reaching out to me and saying, hey, I'm this person, or someone else going, oh, I heard you're looking for this person. Well, they're my neighbor, or I saw them in the school pickup line the other day, or I'm this person's sister, or that was my boyfriend. And like, it's just really crazy. I've gotten messages from like this one guy, for example, reached out because he heard about the podcast and he was like, oh, my mom was dating this guy you mentioned at the time and I was in high school. So I overheard conversations. That purple PT Cruiser, that's my mom's PT Cruiser. Like all of this stuff. And it's like, oh, great. Well, I would love to talk to you more about this. And these are people that the police would never sort of think to talk to or interview. And yet they're people who really do have a lot of info because they're the ones, especially kids at the time, kids like high school age, are the ones who overhear those conversations and they hear their parents on the phone and they pick up on stuff that you wouldn't expect. You know, that guy that I mentioned, he was saying, you know, he was a teenager at the time. And when he went back to school after that summer, kids at his high school were like, oh yeah, your mom's dating a murderer. That stuff sticks with you and you remember it. And it's like, that's really helpful information. And the police are never going to talk to you because they don't know that you exist. And so the podcast has been really helpful in drawing out a lot of this stuff. And something that just recently happened that is sort of kind of coming out now on these new episodes that I'm about to drop. There was a name mentioned to me by my cousin Omar that I thought was absolutely insane because my cousin Omar was really telling a ton of like outlandish tales and changing names and descriptions and how many people were there and whatever. But he always would say this one really random name. He would always say Spoon. And there were all these nicknames involved in my dad's case. So I kind of thought he was like making up this name. I'm like, Spoon. That sounds like, okay. Oh, and Fork and Knife were there too. Like, what is going on? But he kept being like, oh yeah, Spoon was there, Spoon was there, Spoon was there. And I'm like, who is Spoon? Well, I never put it in the show because I thought it was bananas. I thought this man was crazy. And nowhere else I had seen Spoon before. You know, I control F'd on some stuff and I found Spoon in a couple of Omar's witness testimony. But again, it's like, well, that's Omar's story. So he's just kind of saying all this crazy stuff. And then last year, I got a Facebook message from a woman who was like, I really need to call you. I don't know her. I've never heard of her. I don't know this girl. I'm like, okay, whatever. Here's my number. Just throwing out my number. And she calls and she's like, I want to tell you something. I think my boyfriend at the time was involved in your dad's murder. And I'm like, okay, who's your boyfriend? And she's like, his name is Spoon. And I'm like, oh my God, because I've never put the name Spoon in the podcast. So there's no way that she would know that, or that she would, there's no connection whatsoever. And I mean, I had like chills. And she's telling me all of this stuff about why she thinks that it's this person. And I'll try to protect her identity as much as possible, but she's closely related to other people involved in this case. I'm like, oh, well, what do you think is your connection to this other person involved? And have you ever heard of this person's name? And she goes, oh, that person, that's my cousin. I'm like, what? So it's like she was this weird connective tissue that I didn't even know existed. And I found her because of the podcast. And I got the name Spoon out of Omar because of the podcast. And in the ways that I thought the show would put pressure on police to do something, it almost had the adverse effect on the police and made them want to be really quiet. But it made the public go, oh no, she's on to something. And then they all just start spilling their guts. And it worked in that way, which was really interesting. But this Spoon character is a really interesting topic moving forward for me, and something I'm really like honing in on. He, unfortunately, to my knowledge, he was deported back to Jamaica, which is now underwater. So who knows, like, if I could get to him. My plan was to fly down and try to find him. And like now, like with the hurricane, that's all probably like never going to happen. I really don't know, like sort of the status of what will go on there. Jamaica has extradited famously before. I don't know if my dad's case is a big enough case for them to ever do anything like that. I also don't know if this guy did it. So it's like, there's just so many questions, but he is someone that I'm like very honed in on now because of all of this stuff. So we'll see.
So I'm really curious what you do with that information when you first hear it. You got a Facebook message, and then were you messaging, or was this a phone call?
This was a phone call.
Okay, so you followed up with a phone call. So when she says Spoon, how much do you keep your cool there? Do you try to play it as if like this is the first time you've heard this name?
I recorded the call. I think I freaked out a little, but I also think like I only think I freaked out, and I think I played it pretty cool. I have the recording of the call because she wouldn't say anything in writing. So she messaged me and she's like, I have to tell you something. And I sent her my number right away. Like, call me. She calls me. I don't know what she's going to say. I don't know anything. And I mean, she jumped into it because I was looking for it to pull it for the podcast. And it's like the time code's like 15 seconds. Like we jumped like right into all of this stuff. It was very funny. It's a 30-minute call. Normally I'm on the phone with these people for a really long time just to like pull stuff out of them. She just immediately was like, yeah, I've been like sitting on this for so long. We're wanting to reach out to you. And she's like, I think that this guy, his name's Spoon. And it was just really funny. So I was like, oh, tell me more about this. The way that I treat this is so, I think, interesting to myself and other people, because even in like the deepest moments of like, maybe this person killed my dad, I feel weirdly protective of them. I don't know. It's really, I need like a psych eval. I know Spoon's real name. She gave me his full name. I know his real name. I, for whatever reason, because he has a history of being deported and was in Jamaica and potentially might be in the United States, maybe working somewhere, I am weary of giving his full name so that he doesn't get caught by ICE. Like, why do I care about this guy who maybe killed my dad? But I think there's also this element of like, well, maybe he didn't. And then I'm like responsible for, I don't know, something crazy. And even if he did do it, I don't think that's fair for anyone to go through. So I know his full name. She gave it to me. It makes it a little bit easier to find him, although his name is like two very common names put together. And it's like, okay, great. Well, there's like 9 million of you, but you know, I am looking for him. And yeah, she jumped right in. She got on the phone with me, and I was like, okay, who's Spoon? What's his real name? And like, I tried to be calm, but in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like this is a moment where you're like, I did all of this for this. Like, I can't believe that these pieces are connecting in a way that I never thought they would. And even if he didn't do it, I guarantee that guy knows who did it, because he is connected to all these people in all of these weird ways.
Are we going to be hearing about Spoon in the next episodes?
Yes, you will be hearing a little bit about Spoon, and then we kind of talk about other things, and then we come back to Spoon. It's like all roads lead to Spoon. we get a little bit into that phone call and I play little bites of it, and her name is changed, or her name is completely concealed, but her voice has changed. And I try to conceal the relationship to other people to protect her, but she'll be mad at me anyways. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you'll be hearing that, a little bit of that phone call. And then I go into a couple other interesting sort of paths, and we talk a lot about the police because there's a new detective assigned to the case and they've been doing some weird interviews. So it's like a Spoon episode, and then it's a little bit about the police and what they're kind of up to. And then we jump back into these suspects and their connection to each other, why the police aren't looking for any of these people. It's very weird. Like, I'm giving you names and locations and all of this stuff, and it's still kind of like, what's going on here? Like, this is a layup. I'm setting you up for success so that you can go and say your police department solved this case, and you're not taking any of my stuff. But yeah, so we kind of go through that journey throughout the podcast. And then hopefully, because I have 7 left and 3 of them are sort of finished, but there's 4 that I have left to do. Maybe in those 4, I have time to get a hold of Spoon, which the goal was to go down, but TBD on that, just based on everything that's going on.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
How long has Spoon been living in Jamaica, do you know?
Around 15 years. Allegedly. I mean, we don't know technically his whereabouts. He was deported about 15 years ago. I can't find record of the deportation, but that's what this woman said. And they share a child. So the last time she saw him was 15 years ago, and he was allegedly deported. And I'm still looking for record of that, which is weirdly hard to find, especially now. When I started to look into a lot of different stuff is at the exact same time that a lot of the websites, the government websites, were getting pulled with records of like deportations and also any like lawsuits against police departments. There's like a whole government website that had records of like police departments that didn't do their job or were involved in lawsuits or legal action. And that website was also pulled. So yeah, it's like weirdly hard to find info on him. But according to her, about 15 years ago, he was deported and she hasn't seen him in the US since. I imagine it's probably been difficult if he has tried to come back, but I don't know. So as far as we know, he's not in the United States, potentially in Jamaica, could be in another country.
They have a child together?
Yeah, and she is like around 21 now.
Do they call the child Teaspoon?
Teaspoon is funny. I also don't know where Spoon came from. I don't know where the name came from. I know he spent time in New York and then ended up sort of in this like Ohio Valley. He arrived as Spoon, so I don't know. The nickname must have come from like Brooklyn. I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking after 15 years being in Jamaica, and if he's still going by that nickname, he must be pretty, I don't know, he must stand out. You know, someone knows like somebody nicknamed Spoon.
Named Spoon, I know. And Jamaica's not like big, you know what I mean? I mean, it's big. There's like lots of people, but it's not like that big. I live in LA and everywhere I go, I see someone I know. So it's like, there's gotta be somebody. And I know what worlds to look in, right? I'm not going to go to like places where people are super put together. Like if this man is dealing drugs, like if I go to a drug dealing community, I'm assuming he's not that hard to find. Yeah, I had planned to go in the spring, and looking back, it's like, oh, given the situation, I should have, but it was really difficult to line up security. And I really was honestly terrified to go. And I was trying to line up some sort of protection security. I wanted someone on the ground to be able to also help me navigate, and we couldn't lock it in. And I was entering a financial devastating period. And so it was like really hard to find someone that I could like afford that could help me out. So I was like, I'll wait until the fall. And now as of like 2 days ago, it's like Jamaica's Atlantis, the lost city. So I don't know like what will happen. Because at the end of the day, I kind of told myself, like, if I go, like, what happens if I meet this person, right? There's a chance I go, it's a waste of a trip. I go to a beach for a couple days and like get a tan and come home and like whatever, figure it out. A trip to Jamaica sounds nice. There's also a chance I like meet this person. I talk to him and what do we do? I had resolved that if I did meet him and he told me he did it and I really believed that I would be okay with like letting it go. So I don't know. It'll be really interesting to kind of see how this transpires because there's also a chance he had nothing to do with it. He just had red shoelaces and that was just a coincidence that he tied up this girl with phone cords, which is exactly how my family was tied up in the house that day. And all of these things that she said, which are very weird and very specific. And she didn't know a lot of these details could all be a coincidence. But if they're not, I kind of am like, I can't extradite you. That takes a higher power than me. And they're not doing anything about this. So you could tell me you killed my dad and like, we can handshake and call it a day. And you're probably going to stay in Jamaica for the rest of your life. And Belmont County is not going to do anything about it. Because also, given the political climate, I think the last thing Belmont County wants their constituents to know is that they brought back someone from Jamaica that now all of these taxpayers have to pay for them to be in prison for the rest of their life. I think they'll probably be like, let's just leave them in Jamaica. And no one cares. Because no one really cares about my dad. Now, if that was like John Benet Ramsey's killer, they'd bring him right back. No one would care that we're spending $1 million a year to like house this person in a prison. They wouldn't care. But I think this guy could get away with it and let me solve my dad's murder all at the same time. And everybody wins. But we'll see. If he did it. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. It's really crazy.
It is crazy. That would be like a preferred outcome for you.
I think it would be an outcome for me. I don't even know what I prefer. I just want to know, I guess. So yes, in a way, I think there's so much red tape with like there being a trial if it's him because of the very bizarre circumstances surrounding him not being a US citizen, which also then opens up a whole can of worms of like, why did you do this? I don't know. I think for me, it's like I've spent all of this time doing this. I've given up so much to solve my dad's murder. It would be amazing to do so, even in the context of like getting a confession from someone to me by myself. I also am like, okay, great. Then I write a book and I can live in a tiny town and like never have to do any of this ever again. Sounds great. Thanks, Spoon, for giving me a book deal, right? I can move on with my life. I think ideally there's like someone proves this in court because I do think in the same sense that like you could be really famous and it's like not enough. And like you could be an actress and like be in big movies and win an Oscar and you're like, I want more. I think in my head I go, yeah, it's enough just for him to tell me. But then in like 5 years, I'm going to go, oh, but like a court never proved it. Like I'm always going to want more. So I think it would be really great to kind of see the process through to the end. But that's also like going to be incredibly emotional and taxing and draining and take like the next 10 years of my life to like sit in trials and watch, you know, all of this stuff happen. So I do think for now it would be really great if someone would just say that they did it. I mean, I kind of thought that when I met with Daryl, like he's just going to tell me low key that he did it and he's gotten away with it. No one's coming after him. Like he's just going to say, and then I can like be done with this. And that is not at all what happened. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's enough anymore.
You mentioned the new detective on your case. You sound disappointed by, I guess, the inaction. Are they doing anything on the case?
Your guess is as good as mine. Honestly, your guess might be better than mine because you could probably call this man and he would answer your phone calls. I'm a television and film producer and I'm writing a couple psych thrillers at the moment. And the way that they're reacting to me and responding to me has inspired several characters in films that I'm creating. It's weird behavior. For example, 4 or 5 years ago, I got a call from Detective Duvall, who I was working with before. I've met this man in person. He has my phone number. We've exchanged emails at the point that this happened. And he calls me one day and he's like, oh, hey, sorry, like just got your voicemail. I'm like, my voicemail? I never left you a voicemail. And he's like, yeah, I got your voicemail to call you back. Like, I'm like, I never called you and I never left you a voicemail. Like it was so weird. And I got off the phone and I was like, because this was before the podcast came out. And I'm a little paranoid. And I got off the phone and I went, does someone know I'm investigating my dad's murder and calling the detective to see what information I'm getting, to see if they're calling me back. Because the voicemail didn't leave a callback number. And so he just called the number he had for me and was like, oh, I'm just returning your call. You left a voicemail to call you back. And I'm like, I never did that. It was very weird. Like, it like sent chills down my spine because I was like, who knows that I'm doing this? But then I'm also like, what if that never happened and he just called me to like act like he was doing something? So that call happened in 2021. It's 2025. I was emailing with Detective Duvall and he's like, oh, we assigned a new guy to your case. His name's Lieutenant Doug Cruz. Okay, great. He was like, I'm going to put you guys in touch. Okay, awesome. Never put us in touch. So I go to the Belmont County Sheriff's website and I find his email and I email him because I'm like, you've never connected me with this guy. I email him and I'm like, hey, here's my number, would love to talk to you, whatever. He's like, I've been calling you. And I'm like, I have no missed calls. Like, what? And no voicemails. Because sometimes my phone will like send a call to voicemail if I don't have the number saved. No missed calls and no voicemails at all. Being like, hey, it's Detective whatever, call me back. Nothing. I'm like, you've been calling me. That's so weird. So we set up a time for him to call because he tells me not to call him. Like, weird. Okay. So he sets up a time to call me. No call. He emails me and he's like, hey, is this your number? Like, I'm calling you. And I'm like, I am sitting by my phone. Like, you are not calling me. So weird. So then I call him because I'm like, this is weird. I could also have just called you from the beginning. He picks up the phone and he's like, who's Glenda Hawley? And I'm like, my mom. Glenda Hawley is my mom. My mom and I have had the same phone plan since I was 11 years old. But also, you're investigating a murder case of a man who had a baby with a woman named Glenda Hawley. And you don't know who Glenda Hawley is? That's crazy to me. It's just like weird stuff like that kept happening where I'm like, the first thing I did was build a family tree. I know who all of my siblings' moms are because they were all suspects to me. Like, it's so weird. Like, even my mom at one point, there's a very like, I don't even know if I've shared it on the podcast. I have so many episodes now. Maybe I did, but I doubt it because my mom would probably be really mad at me. I sat down with my mom and I was like, where were you on July 11th, 2002? Any kid that this man had should have been at least kind of like, well, what were you doing that day? So the fact that you don't know who my mom is bizarre to me. So it was like, that was kind of weird. He couldn't call me. The number, what's your number? It's like, you have so many methods to get a hold of me and you're not. He admitted on the call he never listened to my podcast and then asked me for all of the information I have. And I'm like, my episodes aren't that long. And at the time there were like 18 out. They're 30 minutes on average. That's one work day for you to listen to my podcast and you never have to ask me what I think because I lay it all out for you. I don't leave you any question as to like who I've spoken to or what I think happened, or if you want the full interview of whoever I talk to, every person I've spoken to, you could ask if you just listen to the podcast. So you're on the phone with me to talk to me about what I know and you haven't even listened. We could have gone more in depth into any of this stuff. But now this conversation stays surface level because you haven't even done the work to know what I know. And it was just really weird. It's like, you want me to do all this work for you, but you're being paid and have health insurance. And I, at the time, am like facing eviction from my apartment. So like, no, I'm not really interested in like sending you basically a case file's worth of work that I've done so that you can get a pat on the back for doing your job, when you could just listen to my podcast and then we could have a productive conversation about like, oh, okay, you really thought it was this person. Well, on our end, we've ruled them out because of X, Y, and Z, but I'm going to call this person. Do you have their number? It's like, that would have been a more productive conversation. Now I'm rambling at you, but yeah, it was just a really weird, he's weird.
What was his answer when you said, that's my mom?
He just went, oh, okay.
He didn't say like, oh, that's right, that name looks familiar after I reviewed all the material.
Nope, not at all. He just went, oh, okay. And I obviously recorded the call because I was legally allowed to. At the time, I was in Austin, Texas for a comedy conference festival, and he's in Ohio, both one-party states, even though he told me not to record the call. Guess what? I consented to the call being recorded. So I have all of that, and it's weird, and I don't like it. And he was like, oh, I just don't want to be on your like podcast. And at some point I was asking him kind of like some questions just because I was curious what he knew. And he was like, well, it sounds like you're interviewing me for your podcast. And I was like, well, I kind of am, because this is all going in the podcast, sir. I didn't say that, but like, what an idiot.
Any update on that? Has he listened since?
I doubt it. I mean, I haven't put his interview in yet. Those are like some of the episodes that haven't come out yet. So like I said, it's crazy that I haven't put out episodes because they are like really juicy episodes, but I've just been like so mentally strained that I'm like, I just can't do it. But they are really good and I think worth waiting for. But I don't think he's listened since. He did reach out to me over the summer and was like, oh, we'd like to get like what you have. Cause I'm like, I have folders and folders and folders of stuff. It's like, I'm not going to send you all that because I know you're not going to read it. I'd rather send you something that like is concise enough that it gets the point across and that you will actually pay attention to it. So I did respond and say, like, oh, let me gather this stuff together and like send it over in a more concise way. And that's on me. I should have sent it, but also it's not on me because they should. Everything I have, anything I'm gathering that I'm sending to them is based off of a case file that they made. So I'm like, I don't really know what you want from me and what I'm supposed to be sending to you because my baseline for this entire investigation is your case file. Like, I'm like, I will send you what I have, I guess, but like the premise of all of this is witness transcripts you sent me, a case file you sent me. Like, I don't know what you want from me specifically, but like I will send you like top line. Like, I talked to Daryl. I think he's worth revisiting, but I told you that on the phone. I think you should talk to Rico. He's in prison also. Like, these are easy people to find because they're locked up. So you can like go talk to them. If I want to talk to them, I have to write them a letter. They have to write me back. I have to fill out a form. They have to add me to their list. If Doug Cruz wants to talk to them, he can drive 90 minutes and go talk to them right now. So it's like, I kind of gave you the people that I would talk to, but sure, I'll write you a 15-page dissertation about what happened to my dad based on your research. I don't know. It's like, the whole thing is just so weird.
Just send him the transcripts of the podcast.
That's what someone said. I think I might do that. I mean, but also here's what's funny about that. The transcripts are publicly available on my website. I put every transcript of every episode on my website. So even me being like, oh, let me send you this. It's like, again, you're the detective I'm trusting my dad's investigation with. And you can't even type icecoldcase.com online and find all my podcast transcripts. And I'm supposed to trust that you're going to solve a murder. That's crazy to me.
He's going to be the same person that will blame you for putting out any information that is not accurate because he hasn't communicated with you, but you put out the information and then he'll be like, well, it's not accurate. It's like, well, I wanted this information.
Or I'm
like,
hindering the investigation
exactly.
in some way. Okay, well, you aren't doing anything. There was an article shortly after I spoke to him in Lead News, which is like not a huge, I mean, nothing in this town is big, but it's like a little like newspaper where they interviewed these detectives about some other stuff. They solved another cold case recently, and in Wheeling, they just solved a cold case, which is not the same jurisdiction and a different state, but it's kind of the same area. They interviewed them and they were like, oh yeah, we're really going to start diving into our oldest cold case, J.C. McGhee. Like, we're really interested in solving this case. And they bring him up, and it's just really funny because it's like, this is all like a PR stunt to you. Like, you entertained having a conversation with me so that I wouldn't talk shit about you on my podcast. Well, that didn't go well for you because I'm still going to talk shit about you on my podcast. But then you do this interview saying that you're so excited to look into this case and solve it and whatever. And it's like, but you're not really doing anything. And I know when this case gets solved, they are going to go on Good Morning America and the Today Show and all of this stuff. And they're going to say, we solved this case, we solved this case, we solved this case, we solved this case. And it's like, you had little to nothing to do with this. They were your handcuffs, but you had nothing to do with this. And I'm okay with that. I don't really care. I'm just like, I just want this all to be done. But it's just ironic and kind of funny.
Speaking of time flying by.
I know, time is fake. It's not real.
And we look forward to your new episodes, but also the cold cases that are unrelated to your dad's murder that we look forward to as well. So definitely stay in touch. Let us know when new content is coming out on your podcast.
100%. I am really excited about it. I get messages from people and families all the time begging for help. And I think, this is a way for me to try to do that. I can't give the same energy and resources as I did to my dad's case to every case, obviously. But what I can do is tell the story in 45 minutes to get it out there. And if someone resonates with it or feels inclined, can also then start a Reddit thread, or, I live in this town and I can provide resources, or I can help in some way, and just getting it out there. These are cases that you've probably never heard of before. Maybe some that you've seen a billboard for, paid for by like the family themselves. Like, these are not going to be like your headline cases. We're not talking about Amy Bradley. Sorry. We're going to be talking about like cases you've truly never heard of before. And I hope that even just the whatever 100,000 downloads that it gets is helpful to the families to make them feel seen and heard in ways that like I was desperate for. When Crime Junkie, my favorite murder, no one was covering my dad's case. And I was just like, I just want anyone to tell this story to their listener so that someone will care. That's how I feel like I can contribute in this way for now. And maybe down the line it's with money or press or whatever. But for now, it's like I have this thing and I can do this. So I'm really looking forward to that.